15C is a very narrow aspect of amendments to pleadings. And so before you begin working on your worksheet and studying 15C, we need to spend a minute thinking about when you would even issue spot 15C, or when would be the triggering event to make a person who's thinking about amending their pleading consider whether they've complied with 15C. Well, 15C really relates to the interaction between amendment of pleadings and statutes of limitations. It is about when an amended pleading will be considered filed, when its date will be. So to get into that, we need to spend just a second reviewing what a statute of limitation is. Statutes of limitation are in every jurisdiction, and they set out when a plaintiff may bring a claim. Most of them, for tort injuries like the ones we see for Miss Parson, revolve around the date of her injury as being a triggering of a timing. The statute of limitations will generally start to run from the date of her injury. During this period, she can bring her claims, whatever they may be, related to this tort injury into court. Now realize, at the end of this period, even if she has a meritorious claim, meaning that she could otherwise prove on their merits that she's entitled to recovery for the tort she suffered from Mr. Deckler, she cannot bring it any longer if she's outside that window of time. Every claim, every type of claim, has a statute of limitations. So Miss Parson may have multiple ones she would need to consider, all based upon the types of claims she's trying to assert. For example, if she's trying to assert a negligence claim, she'll have one window of time, represented by the blue arrow here. If she's trying to assert a battery, she'll have a potentially different window of time in which she would have to assert that claim before she could no longer bring it in court. So how would she know what the time frame is? How would she know what the statute of limitation is? Well, as you can see, it's a statute of limitation, so she would need to look to the statutes in the jurisdiction that would govern her claim. So assuming we know what the statute of limitations are for the particular claims that Ms. Parson in our suit, or any plaintiff, would need to bring, how do we know whether or not we have a problem with our amendment such that we would need to look to 15C? Well, let's consider Ms. Parson here. So she's injured, and the statute of limitations is going to start to run. Let's just say, before the statute of limitation runs, she files her complaint in court. So she's within the blue bar period. Though it's represented here in our diagram. She's within that timing. Then the statute of limitations actually runs. So her complaint, for all intents and purposes, is not going to be barred by the statute of limitations because it was filed in a timely manner. The problem is going to be when she wants to amend that complaint now outside of the statute of limitations. What date should that amended complaint carry? If it carries the date on which it actually was filed, as represented by this diagram, it would be barred under the statute of limitations because that complaint would now be filed after the statute of limitations had run. Can we find a way to cure this? Because after all, she did file her complaint before the statute of limitations ran. Well, that is the very issue that 15C is trying to get us to think about. What date does the amended complaint carry? Can it carry the date of the actual complaint? Or can we pretend that it really was the date of this complaint, the one that actually fits within the blue bar period, before the statute of limitations ran? Note that 15C does not actually address whether she can amend or how the process for amendment. It's addressing that discrete issue of what date should she get through amendments. Should she be able to amend? What date should this amended complaint have? Is it going to have this date and be barred by the statute of limitations? Or is it going to have the date of the original complaint? Can it relate back to this complaint and now carry a date that's not going to be barred by the statute of limitations? So consider these issues when you start working through the pleading section, amendment to pleading section of your worksheet.